For men, 18th century, they were going on ships, they were crossing the ocean, they were killing people with swords, they were battling, they're going off to war. It was adventure, it was excitement. Now they're sitting in cubicles and they're leading these boring, banal lives. Everything is familiar, everything is predictable. A seduction is you're taking somebody out of that world and you're taking them into something different, heightened, more dramatic, more interesting. Seduction involves vulnerability. It involves somebody gets inside, somebody gets under our skin, right? And to do that, we have to let them in. So the person being seduced is in some ways, to a degree, complicit. Because if you just put up a wall and you said, no, I'm not going to be seduced, nothing will happen. But you have a vulnerability. You're letting that person into your psyche, into your inner space. The paradigm for that is early childhood. So Freud talks a lot about this. So I don't know if people still believe in Freud anymore. But his idea was that the child is seduced by the parent. You're in an extremely vulnerable position, right? Your life depends on them. And they're seducing you with their energy. You're letting them in, right? And that kind of creates a pattern for the rest of your life. And so, for instance, the feeling of being carried by your father and just being taken around physically is a form of seduction because you don't know what he's going to do to you. You're very excited. You want that surprise, and opens our mind up to what's going to happen next is a form of seduction. You cannot be seduced unless you are vulnerable, right? And so I like to switch it around and get it out of the negative connotations. Being vulnerable is actually a positive trait. I think a lot of people now in the world today, because things are so harsh and invasive, that people have become too invulnerable. They don't want to let anything in, right? And this now infects their relationships with other people. They don't want to be influenced. They want to be strong inside of themselves. They're afraid of giving in to the other person, of surrendering to their influence. But it's actually a delightful feeling to surrender to the power of another person and then reverse that charge and have them surrender to your power. So when I'm reading a writer, and sometimes they completely seduce me, like Friedrich Nietzsche is one of my favorite writers, I let go of everything. I let him enter my brain and I'm completely seduced. I let him lead me along. But then I encounter writers that I don't like at all. I'll mention one, it's probably not a good thing, but Steven Pinker. I don't like Steven Pinker. I find him really annoying, okay? But I force myself to try and find a way to be seduced by him, to let him into my brain, to see where he's coming from, to open myself to the possibility that he could be correct. So vulnerability, letting people into your mental space, is a form of intelligence. It's a kind of an emotional and an intellectual intelligence. Very powerful seduction technique. It preys on a very elemental part of human psychology. It's something that I don't think people are so good at anymore. But the example I give in the book is of this woman who was a fantastic seductress in the beginning of the 19th century. I believe it's Madame Récamier. She was so angelic. She was just so pure and so chaste. She played the harp. You know what? That's the instrument that angels play, right? They would be salons where she would be playing the harp and there would be other musicians there. And she was very beautiful and the men would like going crazy about her. But then what she would do is she'd be playing the harp and then she would shoot this man a look that said something else, something a little bit sexual, something a little bit naughty. But then it was gone and she was playing the harp again. And he'd be going, what the hell was that? Did I just pick up like some kind of interest in me that was physical? But then she went back. She's such so angelic. She's so unlike that, right? What is it? Well, that triggers the fantasy element, right? The person is a puzzle. And the problem today, and people are so obvious. They're so goddamn obvious. They're on the internet. They're saying, here's what I have for breakfast. Here's what I love. I'm just opening myself up and this is who I am. Right? But seduction involves a little bit of mystery. a little bit of fantasy. It's not like everyday life. It's not like things on Instagram. It's something different. It's theater. That's what's exciting about it, okay? So if you're the male seducer, he will be someone who seems very trustworthy, very honest, very solid. He got an MBA, he's working for Goldman Sachs. But then he reveals something a little bit rock and roll, a little bit rebellious, a little bit like he takes something else about him that doesn't quite click. Wow, I didn't know who this guy is. Maybe he's more interesting than I thought. Maybe he's not so buttoned up and so controlled as I thought. There's another aspect to him. The element of surprise that you don't know who someone is what fascinates us about a movie. When you create a character and suddenly on screen they reveal a trait that seems out of character. Wow, that's exciting. That's what makes you, that's how movies work, right? It's the same thing in real life. You create a sense of, you don't know who I am, but it has to be subtle. It's not like you're not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You're not half evil and half buttoned down banker. You're 95% banker and you're 2 or 3 or 4% of this other thing. It's a little peak of something else that intrigues, that creates a fantasy element, okay? Now, how a woman could sense that that is a tactic, it comes back down to that nonverbal element. Or the other thing is analyze what it is that's intriguing you, what it is that's making you think about the person. So from the woman's point of view, the ability to stand back and analyze the situation instead of getting immediately rushing in emotionally. But in the pickup artist world, they have the thing called negging, negative, where you tell the woman something negative about them. Well, that creates a kind of a wound in them that gives you now room to now your next step is sort of kind and interested in them, but they're feeling like they want to kind of satisfy what you were criticizing. So creating a wound, creating a need for you is what a classic seducer will do. So you're pinpointing a vulnerability that they have, something that's missing in their life, and you're going to be the one that provides it. So if you actually create the need in them by something you say, and then you're the one to satisfy it, it's a very, very potent seduction technique. Now, the thing that happened with the game and the pickup artist scene in Los Angeles is that so many men were using these tactics, were using that negging tactic, that the moment a woman heard that, she knew this guy's a pickup artist, and they weren't interested in it. So it stopped working after a while. But if you see a man doing that, if he's like kind of criticizing you in a subtle way, but then it's covered up by other things going on, maybe feel like that was a tactic, that wasn't genuine, that he was doing that to kind of make me feel insecure, because an insecure person is more vulnerable to being seduced than a totally secure person. Which is why sometimes you have to be able to withdraw from your emotional responses and analyze what's going on. Now, I talk about this in all of my books. We're emotional animals. We're not rational creatures, despite what we might think. So in the moment, you're always going to be emotionally involved. You're going to be upset, but also you want to show the other person that they're wrong about the insecurity they created, which is a seduction technique. So in the moment, as you say, you're feeling that, and there's no way you're going to get over it. It's going to embroil you in a thought process that's going to make you even more insecure. What you need to do is the next day, you need to look back at what happened and think about it and analyze it when they're not in your presence and go, what really went on? So that would be a tactic I would really, really emphasize. On a first date particularly, the next day, mentally review what they did and what they said, and think about whether it seemed like it was genuine or natural, or if there might have been some kind of manipulative game going on, and kind of analyze it a little bit, because it's hard to do that in the moment. So a seduction is like a story that you're telling, right? So what interests us about a story is, I don't know what's going to happen next. Therefore, I've got to turn the page. I'm watching this movie. I don't know what's going to happen to this character. All right, I'm going to keep watching it, right? So a seduction operates on that same dynamic. The person doesn't know where you're going to take them on the next date. They don't know maybe how you're going to appear, what you're going to wear, but the surprises are positive. They're interesting. They're exciting. There's gifts involved. There's places you're taking them to, but it's not predictable. It's unfamiliar. It's theater. Because let's face it, for most of us, our day-to-day lives are rather banal and rather boring. I can say that my life is very boring. I just sit in my office writing all day, right? But for us also in this world, for men in the 18th century, they were going on ships, they were crossing the ocean, they were killing people with swords, they were battling, they're going off to war. It was adventure, it was excitement. Now they're sitting in cubicles and they're typing all day. We're leading these boring, banal lives. Everything is familiar, everything is predictable. A seduction is you're taking somebody out of that world and you're taking them into something different, heightened, more dramatic, more interesting, more theatrical. Okay? So that means you're creating surprises. And so when I'm telling men how to seduce, I say that you have to kind of create these little moments where the woman is caught off guard. She doesn't know where you're taking them, what the next step is. There could be sometimes slightly negative things where it might be, that wasn't good. And then you immediately catch it up with something good, kind of a roller coaster ride, very calculated. So, it's the classic coquette strategy where you're kind of going hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. Maybe the hot is 70% and the cold is 30%. But when you're cold, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because the first thing that you do is, what did I do that was wrong that made them kind of withdraw from me? Then the next moment they're smiling, they're taking you somewhere else. Oh, relief. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, it's okay now. That's how you get involved on that kind of emotional roller coaster, and they kind of hook you that way. Because the whole game, besides getting the other person to think about you when you're not there, is to get them emotional about you. Even if they dislike you, that's okay, because that can be overcome. What you cannot overcome is indifference. So getting them to be upset, which is the whole thing about that wound, getting them to be suspicious, angry, that gives you room to turn around to seduce them because they're emotional. They're getting emotional in your presence. That emotion in your presence can now be turned into something else.